Welcome to the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children's Early Care and Education webinar for Lafourche Parish candidates. We're so thrilled to have you today. I am Libby Saunier. I'm the Executive Director of the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children, and am joined with my colleague, Candace Weber, who is our Director of Partnerships at the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. Next slide. And so what we know is that, the constant question is why investment in public dollars in early care and education? Why is it important? And we know that the brain is just like the foundation of the house, that we really want to make sure that that it's built right the first time. And we know that if it's not built right the first time, it's difficult and expensive to fix it later. And we know that the early years matter most for young children because 80% of brain development happens really between birth through age 3 and then 90% by age 4. And at the end of the day, what we also know is that early experiences affect the development and architecture of the brain. And this architecture really builds the foundation for all future learning and behavior, as well as health, as children learn, change, and grow over time. Next slide. What we also know is why public investment is so critically important in early care education is that we know that significant academic and social benefits happen throughout the life course of a child, all the way into adulthood. And this information that we're sharing here with you right now is from one of the largest longitudinal studies for children who have really experienced high quality early care and education during the first 5 years of life. And what we found in that longitudinal study is that for children that receive high quality early care and education during the first 5 years of life, they have increased rates of IQ, they have better reading and math skills, they have more academic locus of control, which means they believe that they have control over their academics, they have better social competency, they have higher numbers of years in school, as well as finishing high school, going to college, and when they go to college, they tend to finish college at a higher rate. They have full-time employment at a higher rate, and they also have better cardiometabolic health. And then on the flip side, what we see is for children that receive that high quality early care and education in those first 5 years of life, is that they have lower rates of grade retention, lower rates of special education placement. This is important to know is because what we know that research tells us is that grade repetition actually hinders kids. And so that if children are starting out well and they're progressing through development and they continue to do that, they tend to stay and not need to be repeating a grade or end up in special education. And what we also have seen are reduced rates in teen pregnancy, as well as risky decision-making, use of public assistance, and lower rates of risk scores. All of this is wonderful, but there are also benefits to their moms. So what we saw is for these kids that receive that high quality early care and education the first 5 years of their life, the benefits to their moms were great. They had better educational attainment as well as employment, showing that really when we invest public dollars into early care and education, it's a 2-generation approach. It's a workforce of today and a workforce of tomorrow issue. Next slide. And so why invest these public dollars? It's a smart and needed investment for our young children. We know that high quality early care and education, again, has this profound long-term positive effect on children, including all the things that I just told you about a moment ago, as well as that quality early care and education also improves the health, social behavior, and mother's employment. 48% of Lafourche Parish's household are ALICE, and ALICE means asset limited, income constrained, and employed, which if you looked at our rates of families that are in the ALICE population, plus families that are in poverty in our state, that's over half of our state's population. And what this tells us in Lafourche Parish, with 48% of families living in ALICE, and we know that the poverty rate is high, it is well over 50% of our families that are economically struggling right now. It makes it even more important because we know that childcare represents the greatest expense, even above keeping a roof over your head for our families. And that's why this investment is so critically important. Additionally, what we know is that childcare costs as much as public college tuition. And you can't get financial aid for childcare. You could qualify for childcare assistance, but there's still a gap. And when we know the families that really need access to quality early care and education to go to school and work or look for work, they can't afford the gap between what childcare assistance offers and what tuition is. And so we need that increased investment to be present. Next slide. I'll hand it over to my colleague, Candace Weber.
Thank you, Livy. So when we think about return on investment, at the end of the day, the takeaway is when you spend or invest more upfront, you get more bang for your buck. And so James Heckman, the Nobel laureate economist, has done and used longitudinal research to show that for every dollar we spend on quality early care and education, we get a 13% return on that investment. Now, I don't know if you're into investing or if you've been watching the stock market, but I don't know where else you can put your money and get that type of return on your investment. In fact, more recently, as Dr. Heckman has continued this study, he says that that return is now closer to 18% return on investment. And so really what he's saying is if we're going to spend the time, money, and resources, the most effective and efficient way to do that is to do it spend it on our youngest citizens. Additionally, he's also showed that for every dollar invested in early care and education centers, it yields or returns $1.87 to the local economy in purchased goods and services, which is what we need to help stabilize the economy. Our research at the Policy Institute also shows that 2/3 of Louisiana's young children have parents in the workforce who rely on childcare so that they can work. And so then childcare becomes a key factor in workforce participation. We also found in our childcare and the economy report that unreliable childcare is a driving factor for when working parents miss work, for when they change from full-time to part-time status at their place of employment. And in some cases, it is a driving factor why working parents leave the workforce altogether. To put it into perspective, childcare instability costs Louisiana businesses more than $760 million per year. And when you think about the effect that that has on the state's economy, that equates to $1.3 billion, and that's billion with the B, $1.3 billion loss in revenue for the state. So that is significant and just really underscores the importance of investments in early care and education. Next slide. So we also know from our work at the Policy Institute is that early investments pay off. And so by investing in early care and education, it can help prevent future participation in the criminal justice system. And as mentioned earlier, with 90% of brain development happening by age 4, these early years are critical for building foundational skills and pro-social behaviors. And then when we think about high quality care and education, we really think about developing the whole child. And when we invest in the whole child through early care and education, we're less likely to see these children as they age, get arrested or engage in violent crime. And as a result of investing in high quality care and education, we can save millions of dollars in crime prevention, as well as healthcare and other sectors that were mentioned earlier. Next slide. So we know that there's a need for quality early care and education in our state, but specifically in Lafourche Parish, the need remains significant. So we know that there are roughly about 3,500 children in need, age birth through age 4, yet roughly 30% of these children can access publicly funded seats. And when we look at kindergarten readiness in Lafourche, only 16% of kindergartners begin school meeting the benchmarks for learning. Said differently, on the first day of school, 84% of children in Lafourche Parish are in need of remedial services. Again, the need in Lafourche Parish is significant. Next slide. So, as a candidate, the ability to raise the awareness and highlight the importance of early care and education, it begins with you. And so here are a few things you can do to increase access in Lafourche. First, listen to your constituents about their early care and education needs. So whether you're at candidate events, whether you're at forums, or even canvassing neighborhoods or the community. Ask about early care and education. And secondly, I know we've shared a lot of data on this webinar. So for example, we know that breakdowns in childcare results in a workforce participation issue, also results in a productivity issue that's impacting our workforce of today and tomorrow. So share your position on early care and education on your website or social media platforms. Next slide. And as an elected official, you will have the power to change the trajectory of your local economy and the state of early care and education in Lafourche Parish. So a few things you can do: dedicate new, reliable, and sustainable funding to expand access to high quality care and education so that you can leverage state dollars from the Louisiana Early Childhood Education Fund. This is a state matching fund that offers local entities a dollar for dollar match on investments made to expand access to quality early care and education. You can also invest in early childhood development and learning resources for families that support parents with young children. You can also review existing dedicated funds in your budget and identify opportunities to redirect those funds to quality early care and education. And I can tell you there are several parishes around the state that have done just that, to use the existing budget to expand and strengthen early care and education in their region. And then finally, commit to early care and education as a top priority for any new or expanded revenue. And so as we've shown today, the data is clear that an investment in children is not only a significant return on the economy, but it is the right investment for the community, for working parents, and for the children themselves. Next slide. And so here is the contact information for Dr. Libby Sonia and myself. Should you have any questions on any of the information that we presented today, or if you're wondering how you can incorporate early care and education into your plans, please let us know. This webinar is also recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel should you need to review any of the materials that we've covered today. And I believe that takes us into questions. And so let's look at the chat to see what questions we have. All right, so this one says, what can be done as a mayor to help invest in early care and education? And Libby, I'm going to give this one to you.
Sure. So what we know from other municipalities in the state is that the mayors can do a lot. They can identify local dollars to invest in early care and education. We have places like the city of New Orleans that started out with a $750,000 investment in 2017 into a program called the City Seats program. We've seen Jefferson Parish Council invest $250,000 to $275,000 of their parish dollars as well. And so when you invest your parish or your city dollars into early care and education, that makes you eligible for the fund that Candace mentioned earlier, the early care and education fund. We really think of it as an incentive fund because it's a dollar for dollar match for locals who come up with local dollars to say, you know what, we're investing in our young children. We know you have a state fund that we can draw that dollar for dollar match. And so let's say the new mayor Thibodeau wanted to invest $250,000 of the city budget into seats for early care and education. They could potentially get a dollar for dollar match to grow that $250,000 investment to a $500,000 investment. Again, we know that these types of investments are critically important for our economy. It's how we create jobs so that people can go to school and go to work. And we know that reliable childcare is the single most important thing for families to be able to go to work and be able to stay at work. So good question. I see another one related to, can we speak more about the connection between early care and education and crime? Candace, I'm going to hit this to you because you've recently really dug into this a great deal.
Yes, and so we know that, early investments in early care and education yield several long-term benefits with, crime prevention, right? And so as we mentioned earlier, it sets the young children up for those foundational skills, pro-social behaviors, and really helps save on crime prevention, because children who participate in quality early care and education are more likely to graduate from high school, go on to college, and get better jobs to make them self-sustainable versus engaging in violent crime or just participation in the criminal justice system. All right.
And I think I see the other question, and I'd mentioned what the other local communities are doing, but let me also mention Shreveport. Their community foundation of North Louisiana raised philanthropic dollars in the amount of $1 million so that they could to tap into that incentive fund. And so they've been able to do that. And then that $1 million that they've raised philanthropically has now become a more sustainable source through their parish government of raising, some substantial money there as well. And so the other piece of this too, to think about what can happen in local communities is in your very own school district in Lafourche Parish. You all are setting a pace. Your school board approved recently to move forward with this micro center approach. And what that means is that there are many schools throughout the state, and your superintendent recognize that they have some buildings that have capacity where you could, a parish school district would partner with a quality rated childcare center that's a part of the accountability system. And they could operate a childcare classroom within a school building. And so the plan is for Lafourche Parish Schools is to really expand how they're serving 3-year-olds, recognizing that the school district doesn't have to be the one that actually is the provider of the service, but they can partner with people who are highly competent and skilled, part of the accountability system, to provide high quality early care and education to your youngest learners. With the statistics that Candace really shared with us today about how many children are not entering into kindergarten ready to learn, they're already behind. This type of investment by your local school district is critically important to have a successful children, because we fundamentally believe at the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children, if we want to have a successful Louisiana, if we want to have a successful Lafourche Parish, we have to have successful children. And how we do that is by increasing investment in early care and education. 1, for the children, absolutely. And 2, to make sure the parents are able to really care for their children and be able to go to school and work and really make sure that their lives are the very best that they can. In an almost 20-year career, I've never met a family that didn't want the very best for their children. They may not know how, and they may need support to do that. And that's what investments in early care and education can do, is to support families to do the very best for their children so that they can also be successful, not only in school, but successful in life. And that looks like all the questions that we have today. Any closing thoughts, Candace?
Yeah, thank you all for attending today's webinar and your interest in this topic. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you for your commitment to public service. As I mentioned earlier, we are available should you have any other additional questions or would like to talk to us about how you can implement early care and education into your plans and your platform. So thanks again for watching this webinar. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.